Welcome back to Ground Effect Aviation Private Pilot Ground School. My name is Sean Parsons and I am an AGI IGI. Today I'll be going through Module 1, Lesson 2, Training and Certification Requirements for your private pilot certificate. So, who can become a student pilot? Really anyone can start their flight training, but at some point you will need to be able to obtain a student pilot certificate through the FAA. I'm assuming if you're going through this course, you'll be doing it for a private pilot airplane, in which case you can do that at age 16. If you are doing it for a glider or balloon, however, you can do that at age 14. And you must be able to read, write, and speak the English language. You can reference 14 CFR 6183 for more information. And you can apply for your student pilot certificate through the FAA's IACRA website. Once you create an account on the IACRA website, you will start a new application for a new certificate or rating, and you're going to be filling out a Form 8710. This is the same form that you're going to be filling out for any additional certificates or ratings that you're going to obtain in the future. So who can become a private pilot? You must be 17 years old, read, speak, write, and understand the English language, hold either a U.S. student pilot certificate, sport pilot certificate, or recreational pilot certificate, receive flight training and a logbook endorsement from an authorized instructor, meet the aeronautical experience requirements for the aircraft rating sought, which we'll go over in another slide, and pass a practical test and written test for the aircraft rating sought, whether that's airplane single-engine land, airplane single-engine sea, multi-engine land, or multi-engine sea. And you can reference 14 CFR 61.103 for more. So in order to get your endorsement and pass the written knowledge test, you must go and study these required knowledge topics. Applicable federal aviation regulations that relate to private pilot privileges, limitations, and flight operations. Accident reporting requirements of the NTSB, use of the applicable portions of the Aeronautical Information Manual and FAA advisory circulars, use of aeronautical charts for VFR navigation using pilotage, dead reckoning, and navigation systems, radio communication procedures, recognition of critical weather situations from the ground and in flight, wind shear avoidance, and the procurement and use of aeronautical weather reports and forecasts, safe and efficient operation of aircraft, including collision avoidance and recognition and avoidance of wake turbulence, effects of density altitude on takeoff and climb performance, weight and balance computations, principles of aerodynamics, power plants and aircraft systems, stall awareness, spin entry, spins, and spin recovery techniques for the airplane and glider category ratings, aeronautical decision-making and judgment, and pre-flight action that includes how to obtain information on runway lengths at airports of intended use, data on takeoff and landing distances, weather reports and forecasts, and fuel requirements, and how to plan for alternates if the planned flight cannot be completed or delays are encountered. All of these required knowledge topics can be found in 14 CFR 61.105. Next, we're going to talk about the Private Pilot ACS, or Airman Certification Standards. The ACS for Private Pilot will be your Bible for your practical test. It contains all the knowledge topics, risk management areas, and skills that your designated pilot examiner, or DPE, is allowed to test you on. Your DPE will not be allowed to ask you questions or test you on anything outside of what is listed in the ACS. So for that reason, I recommend that you buy or download a copy of the ACS, thoroughly read it and understand it. You can tab it out, highlight it, take notes, make lists of topics that you need to study more. It's a really valuable resource since it's the end result of what your training needs to lead to. So a few resources that I recommend to help with the ACS. The first one is Decoding the PPL ACS. You can find that on YouTube under Seth Lake's channel. And he also offers a download called the VSL ACE Guide. I think it's around $70. It's an amazing document that cross-references all of the FAA handbooks with the ACE guide, with the ACS guide. And you can go in there, break it down by section. And there's some scenarios in there that can really help you understand the mindset of what a DP is going to be going through with you during your check ride. So your practical test, it's commonly referred to as a check ride, will consist of an oral and practical exam. One important thing to remember during your practical test is that the oral exam doesn't end once you're in the airplane flying. The examiner can still ask you questions and he's still examining you on your answers. The FAA written test, or the aeronautical knowledge exam, will consist of 60 multiple choice questions, and you must get 70% to pass. You will have 2 hours to complete the exam, and you must be 15 years old to take the exam. The topics that will be covered in this exam are from all of those required knowledge areas that we went over. To register for the written test, you need to create an account through the FAA PSI portal. The FAA contracts with PSI to issue their exams, and there's testing centers all over the country. And if you're registering for the exam, the test code is PAR. It can be a little confusing when you're in there searching for exams, so just remember PAR is the private pilot written test. You must present an endorsement to take the test, which once you go through this course, I can issue you that endorsement. And you must also bring identification that includes your name, date of birth, residential address, and signature. Most commonly, that's just your driver's license. You can bring an aviation calculator as long as you can clear out the memory by removing the batteries. You must show the proctor that you removed the batteries before you put them back in. And you can also bring a straight edge and E6B. Sometimes these testing centers can be a little strict on what they allow you to bring into the exam. It's always a good idea to call and ask them. They also offer these things in the testing centers. So again, if you call, you can ask what will be provided during your exam. They'll also provide scratch paper, pencils, dry erase, markers with a transparency sheet since you're not allowed to write in the exam booklet. One important note is that the written exam is valid for 2 years, and you must complete your private pilot certificate within that time frame, or you will need to retake the written exam. So when you go for your check ride, as long as you took your knowledge test within 2 years from that date, you will be good. If it's 1 day late, the examiner won't accept your knowledge report and you will have to retake the exam. The other half of your training, aside from your study of the knowledge topics, will be your flight training. So the aeronautical experience for the practical test is listed here. You must have a minimum of 40 hours of flight training. A minimum of 20 hours of that must be with an instructor. A minimum of 10 hours of solo flight time, 3 hours of cross-country flight training with your instructor, 3 hours of night flight training that includes 1 cross-country flight of more than 100 nautical miles, 10 takeoffs and landing to a full stop during that night flight time, 3 hours of instrument flight training under the hood or using foggles. The 10 hours of solo time that are required must include 5 hours of solo cross-country time, 1 solo cross-country flight of 150 nautical miles total distance with full stop landings at 3 points, and 1 segment of the flight consisting of a straight line distance of more than 50 nautical miles between the takeoff and landing locations. And then you also need 3 takeoffs and 3 landings solo to a full stop at an airport with an operating control tower. Depending on where you're doing your flight training, the airport might have a tower or you might be at an uncontrolled airport. So you might need to go to a different airport to get those 3 full stop landings. And then you also need 3 hours of flight training with an authorized instructor in a single engine airplane in preparation for the practical test, which must have been performed within the preceding 2 calendar months from the month of the test. This probably seems like a no-brainer because within 2 months of your check ride, you're going to be wanting to go up with your flight instructor and make sure your maneuvers are in shape and that all of your procedures are down. So within 2 months of your check ride date, you must have 3 hours of flight training with that instructor. So what documents are you going to have to bring with you for your check ride? You'll need to bring your logbook showing that you've met the aeronautical experience requirements that we talked about earlier. A good idea for this is to tab out when you met those experience requirements. For example, when you did your solo cross country, mark that. When you did your 20 hours of flight training with your instructor, when you completed that, tab that. when you did your 3 takeoffs and landings to a full stop at a towered airport solo, mark that. It'll just make it easier for your examiner to find those dates of when you met those requirements, and I'm sure they're going to love you for that. You'll also need to bring your FAA Form 8710. This is not the same application that you did for your student pilot certificate, because at this point you should already have your student pilot certificate. This is actually your Form 8710 for your private pilot certificate. Along with that, your flight instructor will have to fill out a portion saying that he or she recommends you for this check ride. You will also need to bring your written knowledge test report showing that you passed, again with that 70% or higher, your medical certificate, first, second, or third class, your student pilot certificate, and photo identification. All right, in the next couple lessons, we're going to be going over medical certificates in detail, first, second, and third class medical certificates, as well as basic med. We're going to be going over required logbook endorsements, private pilot privileges and limitations, which you can and can't do as a private pilot, and also currency versus proficiency. And then also required personal and aircraft documents to act as PIC. And this is going to be for when you solo as a student pilot, as well as when you have your private pilot certificate and you're acting as PIC as a private pilot. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will respond to those. You can also email me at seanparsons@groundaffectaviation.com, and I can get back to you with answers, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.